How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Hopefully everyone is having a lovely day. The Cincinnati Bengals, making the AFC Championship 2 straight seasons, as many of us can imagine, are going to run into an offseason where it becomes a little difficult to re-sign some of their players. Bengals enter this offseason with quite a few notable names, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, that are unrestricted free agents entering the season. Players the Bengals may or may not be able to re-sign. We're going to go over some of the notable guys today and whether or not we think the Bengals should be re-signing some of these guys. Let's start on the offensive side, actually. Let's start with Samaj J.P. Ryan. I tell you what, I'll be completely honest. When the Bengals first brought this guy over, I was like, I don't know what to think about this one. I don't. And then you watch this guy play year in and year out, and I have been more and more and more impressed the way Samaj J.P. Ryan plays every single Sunday. The guy's been stellar. He's a feisty runner, and I love that about him the most. I love how he's one of those guys. He grinds out the play. He tries to always go for that extra yard or two. He tries to bulldoze. He tries to carry guys. Because that's that will and drive you really just can't teach. And he's got it. Those 1 or 2 yards make a big difference a lot of times. And P. Ryan's one of those guys always willing to play for that extra yard or two. He's proven he can handle the pass protection. He can catch out of the backfield. Really, this guy can do just about anything we want. Personally, at this point, you look at the last 3 seasons, he has had a higher yards per carry every single season, each of the last seasons, than Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, on the other hand, is the one getting paid to be the lead back. And I wouldn't be opposed at all to seeing Joe Mixon cut, Samaj P. Ryan being signed to a contract extension. Because I think P. Ryan's a guy, you're going to get him for under $5 million a year, I think. I would assume that's going to be the case. And again, it's such a big formula in today's NFL where you have cheap running backs and you build around the rest of the team. It's been proven year in and year out. You just go down the list. The Chiefs, the Patriots, the Eagles, the year they won a Super Bowl. So many of these teams have always gone cheap at the running back position. It is the lowest position of need when it comes to salary cap expenditure. It's been proven. So I'd love to see a guy like P. Ryan, cheap contract, can really maybe be a dual-headed threat in this backfield with another guy, whether it be Evans or the Bengals draft somebody in the third, fourth-ish round here late. And I think they can make it work, and it'll be more than capable. Let's talk Brandon Allen. Now, normally we don't talk backup quarterbacks, but it is a really important position when you consider Burrow to, you don't even want to think about it. Burrow to go down a couple of games, you need to try to get somebody that can at least be competitive enough to try to, if you can go 500 or win 2 of 5 or whatever with a quarterback, then that's great. And Brandon Allen comes to the question then because, well, you got to wonder, is Brandon Allen capable of doing that? I don't think he's really proven that in his career. That's the tough thing. We've seen him play a couple of games over there in Denver. We've seen him be a backup for the Bengals here for a while. The thing is, when you're backup for the Bengals, you're backup behind Joe Burrrow. You get a chance to really grow and learn in this system. You have to really feel good about that. As a quarterback, as a guy, as a backup that says you feel a lot more prepared and a lot more ready. You're being put into a winning situation here. And I think that's important to consider. When a guy sits there in your system for 3-4 years, and then he comes into the game, he's a lot more familiar with things, a lot of continuity, a lot of the same faces, a lot of the same coaches have been around this whole time. Now when he comes to the game, I feel like he's more prepared, opposed to a quarterback coming out of free agency that hasn't played here, he's got to learn the system, he's a backup, he's a career backup, kind of thing. So I think Brandon Allen's got a big edge there. I do still think, it depends on the contract. Allen right now is signing for $1 million a year, 1.15, 1.5, whatever. That's really important for a team that's trying to get as much money spent on players and staying under the cap because he's a backup, obviously important. I think Andy Dalton, example here, Andy Dalton got just under $2 million a year. So it matters how much you can pay for these now. Obviously, I imagine the bridges are burnt with Andy Dalton, but if you can get a guy of Andy Dalton's caliber as your backup quarterback for that price, I'm like, yeah, I'd be going all over that. I think Andy Dalton's a huge upgrade from Brandon Allen. I think Andy Dalton's a guy that can come into a game and win you football games, right? So it really depends on who the backups are as far as that's concerned. I personally would say keep Brandon Allen or maybe draft a guy in the 6th or 7th round. Give him a chance to really grow and develop under Joe Burrow. The thing is, then you say, well, you wasted a draft pick and your franchise quarterback's going to be your franchise quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. This guy's never going to play on your team. That's the only thing going that direction. So I would like to see them just find a budget-friendly quarterback, keep him in a system. Not too big and different really here on signing or getting rid of Brandon Allen. Now, as far as Eli Apple is concerned, Eli Apple is the ultimate wild card for me here. I really don't know the direction the Bengals go in this one. There's a couple things to consider. First of all, Eli Apple played really good. You talk about a guy that resurrected his career in Cincinnati, played fantastic, played through, I don't want to say the adversity, the hate, because he kind of created it himself because he's a trash talker. That's how he plays the game. Respect the guy for being the person that he is on the field, though. That's who he is as a person. He's not hiding that from no one. If he wants to trash talk, if that's what amps him up, hey, then go ahead and do it. We kind of made the comparison to Chad Johnson. You take the voice away from the guy, and he loses that motivation and that drive to shut the opposing team down, or in Chad's case, running over the other team. But I like Eli Apple as a player. I think he's a guy that can really help this Bengals defense. The question is, how much money does he start garnering now that he's put on a couple one-year deals? He's kind of had a chance to prove his worth in this league. I mean, this guy just played as the Bengals' #1 corner. A Bengals team that won all the way, wow, what was it, 10 games? 11 games. 11 games? It was more than, might have been more than, lost count once we got the playoffs. But anyway, took the team to the AFC Championship game on the bat. He was team's #1 corner. He's going to get good money somewhere. And I think that's the thing. If you say this guy gets 9, 10, 11 plus million, it becomes difficult for the Bengals to re-sign this guy. He gets cheaper deals, sure, but again, this is where the predicament comes. I'm not as much worried about the money. I'm worried about the situation. Awuzie is going to come back. He's going to be your #1. Mike Hilton is going to be your #3 or your slot man. He always will be. The guy's an absolute stud there, your slot man, your pass rusher, the guy that can do it all, really. Which leaves you with a #2. And if you're not the #2, you're going to be the #4. I think you watch the way Cam Taylor-Britt played and said, this guy played really good. He's only going to get better. He's a young and up-and-coming player for this football team. You have to give this guy a chance to shine and shine bright because he's a young player. He can stick around to this team for a long time. We don't know where Awuzie goes after his contract. You have to build around somebody that's younger. And you can't bury Cam Taylor-Britt, I think, if you have confidence in this guy being a #2 or #1 one day. Because if, again, you sign Eli Apple, maybe he wants 3 years now or something. It's like, okay, now what? Cam Taylor-Britt's going to be a 4 unless somebody gets injured? Or the other case is to say Britt's going to be a 2, but Eli Apple's going to re-sign with this team to be happy being a 4. I don't think so. I think he earned and deserves himself a starting job somewhere, Eli Apple does. So I really think the Bengals are in a really big situation here where love to keep the guy, but they kind of just have to let him walk. Unless they find another way to figure out a way to get this guy into the lineup. You got to spend your, again, money wisely and develop your talent as well here. And it's going to open some money up by letting him walk, I guess. As much as I don't want to see it happen, it's probably going to have to happen. Let's move on to Hayden Hurst. Hayden, talk about guys I don't want to see leave. Man, I love watching this guy play. We talked about OP Ryan, always fighting for the extra yardage. Hayden Hurst is another one of them. Every time you watch this guy play, he's fighting for yards. He's fighting every single down. He's giving it his best, his all. And that is just the type of attitude, the type of mentality, the type of player you want on your football team. When you got guys like that set the tone, that amp your team up, you make that catch in traffic and you carry a guy for 4 or 5 yards, I mean, that amps everyone up. A game of momentum, a game of confidence. You got guys like Hayden Hurst that just instills all of it when he's on that football field. The issue with Hayden Hurst is we're seeing projections of this guy getting $9.5 million. 3 years, $9.5 million is, I think, what Pro Football Focus had this guy pegged in at. That's too rich for the Bengals. If you get this guy for 3 to 5 like you did last year, he wanted to play a couple years like that, then great. If you looked at the Bengals and said, well, this team really did break or revitalize my career, I might be a free agent, not even playing right now because the system depended that much where I played. That's not a knock on him, but, you know, when he was behind Mark Andrews and he was behind, or in what Atlanta's case, they just didn't use the tight end as much. I don't know, it didn't work out for him. And you look and see he's got a defined role in this team. If that's more important to him winning, that's great. But you also have to respect and understand if a guy's got a chance to make money, and he's not, who knows how long he's going to be in this league and how low his contracts have, but he's got a chance to make money. You respect the fact that he wants to do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what Hayden Hurst wants to do. If I was the Bengals, I'd get this guy for, you know, again, $6 million or under. I'd be all over it. But it's also very important to remember, CJ Uzomah and the Jets now, it's very important to, you know, take a note of that. Joe Burrow's going to make any tight end he plays with look like an absolute stud. Because that's the kind of quarterback Joe Burrow is. And I would love to see what Wilcox does with this team next season. I think the Bengals can keep doing what they're doing, bringing in low-budget tight ends that have a high ceiling, low floor. Like, you buy them at the floor, they have a high ceiling ahead of them. I think the Bengals can do that year in and year out. I don't draft a tight end. I think you play this game, you go through the free agents, the cheap tight end market. There's plenty of them out there that just put in the right system, put in a quarterback like Joe Burrow is going to play well. But, man, it's tough because of the way Hayden Hurst carries himself and the way this guy plays on the field. I think that alone is worth the contract, just not 9 or 10 million. So if he stays cheap, you keep him. If not, he's got to walk. Let's talk about where things get a little bit more expensive, if you will. Jessie Bates. I don't think Jessie Bates stays. I think that's made pretty clear he wants his money. There's teams, they're already talking about him as a top free agent at his position in the market. He's going to get bid on and he's going to get bid up. He's going to get a lot of money somewhere. I think the Bengals decided they're walking on him. We're not going to go into too much depth about it. You got Dax Hill back there who is looking pretty good. The thing is, you say, well, you got Jessie Bates, Vonn Bell. You're going to lose two guys. So Dax Hill is not two players, even though he's a good player. He's not two. So that leaves us with Vonn Bell. Vonn Bell, who $6 million, $7 million, $8 million. I mean, if this guy getting anywhere $6 to $10 million. What was he, 6 years or 3 years, $6 million a year for the Bengals he had? I love that contract. I'd love to see Vonn Bell stay again. You have to have, again, we're just talking about these youngsters. You're going to have Cam Taylor-Britt potentially, part of your secondary now. You're going to have Dax Hill back there as a safety. You want to pair up Dax Hill with a veteran presence, I think. I think that's really important for this guy. Get a guy that's been there. He's done that. He can be a bit of a mentor, not only be that, but be the cog in your defense that can really, make sure things aren't falling apart. Be that workhorse, be that player of stability, if you will, on the defense that you can always count on. And Vonn Bell's that kind of guy. He can do it all over the field, and I'd love to see it again. I think Vonn Bell really wants to be here too, so I think Vonn Bell's contract can get done. I think Vonn Bell can stay, and again, I'm not worried about the age. He might be 31, 32 when he's done at the Bengals. That's fine as a safety. Typically their longevity is a little bit longer than some of these other positions on the defensive side. So I'm all in on Vonn Bell staying for the Bengals. I think they make a deal work. And then there's Jermaine Pratt. Jermaine Pratt, stellar season. This guy played really well across the field in pass coverage. He was great. Love to have the guy on the team. The question becomes what the Bengals have created here and what is so important compared to the Bengals of the past, teams that have fallen apart. We've seen them take penalty at the penalty end of the season. Cost them games, the Steelers games, playoffs, regular season, the Chad Johnsons, the T.O.s, the Vontaze Burficts, the Pac-Man Joneses, type of players. But you kind of built this not so conjoined culture. It's more about me culture. It felt like there was more selfishness on the teams. It felt like there was a little bit more, I don't want to say selfishness because they're still good players. We don't know who they are as people personally. Chad Johnson, clearly a great person off the field, but they like to talk a lot on the field. But so we're not taking shots at individual players or anything here. But I think it's important to realize the culture of the Bengals. I think a lot of us that have watched the Bengals over the years understand this. The culture has changed. It feels like a lot of these guys are playing for each other. It's a lot more of it feels more like a family playing for each other. They're worried about each other more than they are themselves. And I think that's important. And continuing to build that culture and keep that culture. And Jermaine Pratt, a couple times this season, has made it well known he's worried about that money. Let's forget about what he said to Osai and how he got on him after the game. I thought that was terrible. That was a huge crack in the foundation to start with. That alone was a reason to say, okay, you can't keep this guy around. Because you want these guys playing for each other, with each other. You don't want to build any sort of animosity in that locker room. The confidence, the continuity, it's important. But there was a couple times before this even happened. Jermaine Pratt talked about needing that money, talked about getting that bag, talking about how important it was to make sure he made that money, he got what he deserved. And earlier in the season, he said he should be playing on third downs more because he's leaving too much money on the table. That's selfish attitude through and through. And for that reason, I say no. I don't want Jermaine Pratt. I don't care. Unless he's going to sign for $4 or $5 million. No, I don't want him. He ain't worth it. I'm sorry to say it, but I can't. I can't do it with Jermaine Pratt. He could change. He really could. But I'm too worried about, personally, the attitude and the culture of this team, understanding how quickly things can break down, especially when you don't have each other's backs, especially when guys get reckless on the field, or there's that sort of in the locker room animosity between guys. And I think the bridges were kind of burned here with the Bengals. We'll see. We did hear Pratt apologize, not too long after that. So maybe we're blowing it out of proportion here. But I think that's where we're going there. And we're going to see what the Bengals do. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.